Welcome, everybody. It is Wednesday. Hey, Mike, what day is it? Oh, sorry. It's hump day. Okay, the first half hour is sponsored by Bitterroot Motors, doing it right for more than 42 years. Temp Ride Service, call Team Blues 728-1111. Also brought to you by the Mustard Seed Restaurant. That is John King over there. How you doing, John?
I'm doing good. Were you just quoting that camel from the ad that plays before the movie?
Hey, Mike.
Movie day.
Movie day. Movie. Yeah. Turn off your cell phone.
Camel's pretty awesome.
There you go. So, we have lots of stuff to share with us.
That's right.
That we just found out today, earlier this morning, that we'll be privileged to have the brand new sheriff of Missoula County, TJ McDermott, going to be joining us about 8:30 this morning on the phone and talking about all sorts of things going on. To find out his first couple of weeks on the job. Boy, I tell you what, the very first day the sheriff took office, we had the shootings going on and investigations.
It's been a busy ride, yeah.
And I can't even imagine, you can't just ease into something like that. Yeah. So we'll see how he's doing and find out what the status is. Of course, we heard yesterday that Captain Rio, who I consider a good friend, was found to be not responsible. No criminal charges will be filed for the shooting that occurred on New Year's Eve. So that's good news for him and good news for the Sheriff's Department. We're going to find out more about that decision and what it means and what happens next. So all that's coming up.
In the meanwhile, I've got a bunch of stuff to talk about. This is actually something I had in lineup for our New Year's conversation, which I don't know what derailed that, but it's talk back. Something else always gets in the way. But I've still got it in my stack of stuff. I thought I'd brought it back up because I thought it was really interesting. And I'm going to bring it back up in a way that gives you listeners a prize.
A chance to win.
That's right.
Free.
So we're going to have a little quiz.
All right.
It's not really a quiz. It's a guess. And we're free to take your opinions as well.
I will tell you, I got this wrong.
Peter has got it wrong. So far, no one has got it right. And I haven't given the answer out yet.
Okay, so
I'll ask you the question, but first I'll tell you the prize. Anyone that calls in, even if you get it wrong, I don't care. First two callers. We're going to give away $20 gift certificates to the Man Shop, barber shop here in town.
Give me that.
They have foosball tables and stuff.
Give it to me.
All kinds of cool stuff.
I want a free haircut. Give it to me. I can't have it. I'm sorry.
But you don't have to worry about walking out with long blonde hairs, hanging off your pant cuffs and everything, because it's a place for guys.
It's a guy shop. Okay.
Okay, so here we go. Every year.
Now, hold on.
Yeah.
Caveat here.
Caveat.
You can't just call and win the Man Shop gift certificate. You have to go on the air with it.
That's right.
You have to speak on the radio. Mm-hmm. So go ahead.
Okay. So every year, the Gallup organization does a poll to find out what issues are of utmost importance, the most important problems facing the U.S.
All right.
They poll the entire nation on
Sure.
this. This is something they've been doing since at least 2001, but I think it goes back even further.
Oh, sure.
So anyway, last year was an anomaly. It was the first year ever that a particular issue was named the most important problem facing the United States.
Okay, well, I would say that the most important issue facing the country in 2004. Now, this is the year just passed. Okay, the most important has to be the economy. Has to be, because that's what we're all thinking about all the time. So, all right. So
Catherine says she's got the answer.
Oh, really? Well, so am I wrong? It wasn't the economy.
Definitely wrong. But if you were to average out all of the problems,
right,
that answer comes up most of the time. From 2013 to 2008, number one issue, economy, every year.
Yeah.
The peak year for economy being the biggest problem was 2009.
Well, of course, that was right in the middle of the recession.
But even as long ago as 2012, it was 31%.
Okay.
22% said the economy in 2013, so that's not that weird. And then back in 2003 and 2001, economy was also number one.
Okay, so let's, as James Carville famously said, it's the economy, stupid. So, all right, let's get Catherine on the line. Good morning, Catherine.
Morning.
So if it's not the economy, smarty pants, what is it?
Well, because I read the the
fine.
thing. And
she cheated. Wait a minute, she's not a man. She can't get her hair cut at the man's shop.
She can always give it to
somebody. No, but I know guys.
Okay, fine. Just trying to be careful here. So go ahead.
Oh, okay. The growth of government.
It wasn't specifically the growth of government,
well,
but it is government.
It's an overwhelming control of government. It's people are concerned about how overwhelming the government is becoming.
Seriously, that was number one, really?
Well, here's there's basically three categories they put together.
All right.
Government/Congress/politicians.
Oh, so they had to gang up on the economy to beat it, right?
Well, the other one, I mean, it's economy in general,
Right.
which covers a lot of stuff. I mean, really.
Yeah.
That would be number two. But it is close, Peter. So it was 18% of the public chose government
All right.
Yes.
as the biggest, most important problem facing the U.S. 17% said economy. So very close.
So
Government has been slowly moving up.
They were neck and neck.
Well, they're kind of intertwined these days, aren't they?
Yeah, they certainly
because
are.
our government is becoming quite fascistic. So
After that, it was employment at 15% and healthcare for 10%. I'm curious, Catherine, what would you put on your biggest? What is the biggest problem facing the U.S. if Catherine Halderson was responding to the Gallup poll?
I would say government. I would say the growth of government, the massive number of regulations that are coming down the pike, which essentially pretty much touch on every aspect of a person's life, one way or the other. And it's not just the federal government; it's state and local governments too, all around the country. So.
Well, hey, thanks for calling. I will set aside one of these things for you. Why don't you stay on the line, and I'll get some
Put
stats.
Catherine on hold. We're up against a break, 721-1290. We still have one of these $20 gift certificates to give away. So we will have another little... Actually, John said the first two callers. So we've already had one. If you would like to call and win a $20 gift certificate from the Man Shop, 721-1290 is our number. We're going to come right back with more of Talkback right after this. Hey, this is Talkback, and we appreciate you being with us this morning. 721-1290. 2 hours every single weekday. Can you believe that? Of giving you the opportunity to voice your opinions about stuff, whatever it might be. We have all sorts of things going on. We have pretty much open phones this half hour. We're expecting a call from Sheriff T.J. McDermott about 8:30.
That's right.
Talk about some things in the Sheriff's Department, big decision that came down yesterday from the County Attorney's Office. We'll talk about that as well. So what else did you have for us there, young man?
Yeah, I was going to say, some of the interesting things that, the news cycle drives a lot of the responses to these, these Gallup polls.
In other words, you think about what we tell you to think about.
Well, they
Yes.
don't really have a lot of
Yes,
news.
because we have the control. We control your every thought. Yes.
But they do the poll every month.
Yes.
And they keep track of how people responded throughout the month. So, for example, one of the things that I thought was interesting, racism or race relations, relatively low total average for the year. The average response was just 3% of the public thought it was one of the most important issues facing the U.S.
All right.
The most important problem facing the U.S. However, 1 month of that year, there were 13% of people responding. So, I mean,
That was-
when it was big in the news,
Yeah, with the Ferguson
that
deal
was a
problem.
big problem.
Yeah.
And then other months, it was just 1%. So you kind of see how your news cycle kind of fades out. Unemployment and jobs had the highest monthly of anything, even more than government or the economy. Had a month where it was the most concerning issue of the nation. Other things that just never hit but get talked about all the time in politics, especially in campaign season: education, poverty, the gap between rich and poor, crime, our judicial system, terrorism, wage issues, that would include minimum wage, national security, war. All these topics, less than 4%.
Okay. When you start talking about those words, there are some buzzwords that politicians use all the time, okay? For instance, I challenged Steve Daines once when he was running for the Senate, and we were in a closed meeting, and he started talking about people, I want to promote Montana values. I said, would you please tell me what are Montana values? What are they?
Well, number one, get away from me. That's one Montana value.
And so hold on now. So for the other man club $20 gift certificate, I want you, our beloved, wonderful listeners out there, the first one to call 721-1290, to tell me what you think, quote, Montana values, end quote, are. What are Montana values? Okay, 721-1290. I really want to know. Because whenever I hear phrases like, we're going to fight for working families. So what is a working family? I mean, does that mean the kids are out there slaving away at the sweatshop? There are certain buzzwords that I don't know why they just kind of stick me the wrong way. I don't really understand what they mean. And so I'd like to ask, and I get funny looks from... I got a funny look from Steve Daines. In fact, he was not terribly happy. Luckily, it wasn't before the public or anything. He just kind of.
All right, here's our first contestant.
All right, this is my friend Sue. All right, good deal. Hey Sue, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good to talk with you again.
Yeah.
Do you have your kid back now from being a page in Congress?
Oh, we're getting on an airplane tomorrow morning and going to Washington, D.C., and I just got off the phone with her, and she's arranging a private tour of the Senate floor.
How exciting is that?
Conducted by her.
Wow.
That's pretty cool.
Well, she knows her way around now. See?
Hey, Sue, can you do me a favor?
Pardon?
Can you do me a favor? They're supposed to have this big push on methane. I would like you to plant some whoopee cushions around the Senate floor so that when they have the methane discussion, there can be extra flatulence.
Wow.
Well, she's just disappointed that she's not going to be there for the State of the Union, which is going to be, I think, on Monday.
Right.
So she doesn't get to see that.
Well, you did hear our news report this morning. I'm hoping that President Obama kind of dropped a little of a bombshell on the education officials around the country when he said during his State of the Union speech he will propose that all citizens of all 50 states get free education at their state community colleges.
For 2 years.
Yeah, for 2 years.
Yeah.
And we're going, I talked with Kevin McCrae, who was a deputy of the Board of Regents, and he said, there's no such thing as free education. Somebody's going to have to pay for it. So, anyway.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
But they have free education in Scandinavian countries, and they all seem to be doing okay. But they do pay higher taxes.
They certainly do. All right.
They also don't have children.
From.
So Sue, what are, the question we asked is, what are, quote, Montana values, unquote?
Montana values are...
By the way, there is no wrong answer here. I just want to know what you think.
Well, you get up every day, you go to work, you work hard, and you try to earn a good living, you try to be a good person, and you try to help your neighbor. Those are Montana values. As
opposed to North Dakota values. I'm just wondering how Montana values differ from, say, Vermont or Connecticut or Florida.
It's political speak.
It is political speak.
It's what they all say, and his values are certainly different than mine. But I think what we all want to do is make a living, raise our families, and have clean air and clean water, and live a good life, raise our children, and I don't know what else.
Which is exactly what John F. Kennedy said in his inaugural speech.
There you go.
We all have we breathe the same air. We all want the same thing for our children.
We do, and if this XL pipeline goes through, our air isn't going to be as clean, and when everybody thinks that it's going to create all these jobs, and the jobs are going to be very temporary, and we're going to be stuck exporting dirty oil to China and all over the world.
Well, one little thing that I learned about the XL pipeline, which may ameliorate your opposition, is that the revenue generated from that pipeline coming through Montana is going to help provide electricity to a lot of small towns in the eastern part of the state who ordinarily would be paying through the nose for electricity. So does that help at all?
Well, but how long is that going to be for?
Well, how long is the pipeline going to be there?
They're going to have to pay taxes
Well,
on their
and
pipeline.
how long are we going to be paying, $1.94 for gas? I mean, that's not going to last very long. And
Right, but Sue, you realize that when the pipeline's built, they still have to pay the taxes on their property to Montana. We're still going to get paid for
You
it.
mean in perpetuity?
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's a good thing.
Yeah, it's a huge good thing. That's one of the main. That's one of the main reasons for. That's one of the main reasons for wanting for why Montana. That's why John Tester. One of the reasons why he's supporting.
And guess who's going to be?
I'm torn on this one too, but my daughter had a perspective at being on the Senate floor during the debates, and she was pretty much pro pipeline until she heard the debates on the other side, until they actually started debating it.
Right.
And she learned about the temporary nature of the the good jobs situation, and how it's the tar sands are the dirtiest oil produced, and it's going to create.
Well, think about this, Sue. Has there ever been a construction project that wasn't temporary?
No, exactly.
No, but the way they're talking is that it's gonna these jobs are gonna last for forever, and they're selling people a bill of goods about how long the jobs are gonna last.
All right.
And then the people are gonna be unemployed, and we're gonna have a whole nother cycle of.
Well, they'll have another project. I mean. Anyway, hey, listen, we got to run. We're overdue. Thanks, and we have your gift certificate waiting here for you. Okay.
Cool. All right. Thanks.
Thanks, Sue. Have a good time in
Bye-bye.
Washington, D.C. Hey, Tyler, we're going to get you on here in just a minute. 721-1290. We have 2 lines open. We'll be right back. Fighting for working families and Montana values every day, even though we have no idea what that means.
I like the working families line. A lot of the people that are like fighting for working families are also fighting against child labor.
Right,
so,
exactly,
which
yeah.
it just doesn't seem to work.
Anyway, 721-1290 is the number, and we're doing political speak here, Tyler. So what are Montana values anyway?
Freedom!
Ouch, my stomach hurts already.
I had to move the phone away from my head.
There you go.
I would say that is a pretty good example of a Montana value, frankly.
Well, and that's why I'm an out-of-stater, and I'm not proud to say it, but when I came here to assimilate. I came here to become a Montanan. I came here because there's a certain sense of freedom that comes with people that live in a state that is so open, that is so available for exploration. I've done a lot of exploring since I've been here. This is a very historic state. A lot of history happened here. Every time I take a trip up to the Flathead, I think of the sailors getting escorted up there at gunpoint back in the late 1700s.
Right.
This place is so stocked with history and things that you can do. That is what drew me here. Is because I wanted to be free. I wanted to get back to my roots. I wanted to understand what it was like to live, a long, long time ago, back when this country was just getting, explored, and people were carving their lives out of this rugged, rocky mountain with their bare hands, homesteading, just trying to make a living. And people are still trying to do that today. And I think that when you can get in touch with that, then you can understand this area and live a little bit more free, other than Peter, who doesn't hunt, doesn't fish, doesn't hike, doesn't walk in the woods, doesn't want to look at a bear and touch with
he's free to have his popcorn.
Yeah. Well, there's other states you can do that too, but I love Montana and I love this area, and I love just being here and being free, and having politicians and everybody just get out of our way. Let us live. We'll make it. We'll do all right. We'll keep the air clean. We'll keep the forest clean. We'll take care of it.
Well, the neat thing is that I mean this from my heart. I honor those who love to go out and hunt and fish. I know, John, you love to hunt. You love to go out with your kids in the woods and do stuff like that. Camp and fish and hunt and ski and snowmobile and snowshoe. I mean, I honor all that. It's one of the great reasons why people live here. My personal choice is I love to work. I find meaning in work, and so I love going out and getting news stories and doing commercials and being on the radio and all that, and that takes up a lot of time. So, but it fulfills me.
So what Peter's saying is work makes him free. It's really
well. You stop. No, but see that is my choice. Okay, right. Just as it is so many other people's choice to work just enough to be able to afford to go out and do all the other things you want to do. I mean, that's that's about 99.9% of the people. Yeah. I realize I am in a extreme minority. Okay, I understand that, and so when people say I'm going to go hunting, I'm going to go fishing, I'm like, great, have a wonderful time. Tell me about it when you get back.
I should say this show and all the shows that Peter does are so much fun because Peter's actually having fun. Like. This is Peter in his element. This is Peter when he's on. So you don't get that. Obviously, this is freedom for Peter.
That's right. This is
living the life.
This is what I feel like I was born to do. So there you go.
That's good. And you make my Monday a lot better because I use your enthusiasm to make my Mondays a lot better.
Well, hopefully it's still contagious by the time we get to Wednesday and then Thursday and then Friday. Yuck. Anyway. All right, Tyler. Thanks for the call, man. Have a good one. All right, 721-1290 is our number, 1-800-568-5309. So we're still taking calls about what you think Montana values are. I think Tyler has a really good point.
What was Mr. Daines' response?
His response, pretty much what Sue said and what everybody said, just the ability to work and raise your family and make a good living and all that. I mean, it is an eternal truth that the yearning in the human heart for freedom and for actualization and fulfillment, wherever they live, whether it's in Missoula, Idaho, California, Oregon, whatever. Everybody has the same wants and needs and desires and wanting to be free and make a living and be a success in life.
But it's funny, like if you say New York values and you contrast that with Montana values, do you think that there would be different things in the tableau?
Or
California values.
I'm going to fight for Beverly Hills values right here.
And what the heck do the people in the District of Columbia say?
Oh, I don't know.
How do they talk about, well, not back home we are in TC. I guess we really are all just screwed up.
All right, 721-1290. We're up against a break here, hoping we're going to get a call from TJ McDermott, the sheriff of Missoula County, and talk about some of the things that he has experienced in his first tumultuous 2 weeks in office. I mean, can you imagine? You literally take just hours before you take office. There are 2 shootings in Missoula County, okay? One involving a police officer, one involving a sheriff's deputy. And you take your oath of office and you unlock the office on New Year's Day and wow,
right? And he's involved in both because his department has to oversee the city of Missoula City shooting, and is directly involved with the other ones.
Exactly. So there's a lot going on, and I think it's going to be interesting to find out how he's feeling, how he's doing in his first couple of weeks. So 721-1290 is our number. We're going to come right back with more of Talkback right after this. This is Talkback. 721-1290 is our number, 1-800-568-5309. You can also make your comments on our Facebook page. We would love to hear from you. Right now, though, we're privileged to have with us on the telephone TJ McDermott, who was elected sheriff. And now, TJ, let me just set up a scenario for you, okay? You fight hard to win the election for Missoula County Sheriff, and you're feeling good, and everything's great. And then somebody tells you, on your first day of office, let me tell you what's going to happen. Did any of the things that you literally stepped into your office on that first day, on New Year's Day, you had already a desk full of issues to deal with, right?
I sure did. In fact, it took me several weeks just to be able to even get moved into the office. It was go time from the beginning.
Wow.
Now, because I know there was a terrible incident involving a police officer, and then not 24 hours later, one of your own officers, Tony Rio, was involved in a tragic shooting in which a couple people almost lost their lives, including Captain Rio. And so as the sheriff, you have a dual responsibility here in that you were called upon by the police department to begin the investigation into the police department shooting, right?
That's correct, and it's rare in our community, first of all, to have officer-involved shootings,
right?
Let alone to have two in such a close period of time. But one thing that proved well during this was just the relationship between the sheriff's office and the city police department, where they were able to make a request to the sheriff's office to investigate their officer-involved shooting, and the very next evening, I was able to do the same with them, and I'm very thankful for that relationship, and to have Chief Brady and his staff, on board with working together and collaborating to provide the best service to this community.
You were saying it was rare, and Peter and I were talking about this the other day. We were wondering, are we just noticing all of these, officer-involved shootings because of national news, or is it really just something that just kind of randomly happened? When was the last time we had a shooting like this?
It has been several years since we've had an officer-involved shooting of this nature. Now, this is something that's becoming more common for larger communities and larger police and sheriff agencies. But for Missoula, fortunately, this isn't something that's common.
Now, one thing that I have noticed is there are basically two fronts building here. One is a front that is critical of law enforcement, saying you're becoming over-militarized, you're getting too many weapons, that sort of thing. And on the other hand, almost an equal amount is the amount of support coming out from neighborhood groups and service organizations, whatever, in supporting law enforcement. So have you seen that happening here in Missoula?
I have. Missoula is just a great community to be a law enforcement officer in, and if anything, some of the division that was a result of the election, when circumstances like this happens in an officer-involved shooting, everyone really kind of puts their differences aside and gets back to work and works well together, and it just kind of puts things back into perspective, the dangerous work that we have to do and how important it is that we work together and make sure that we're safe as deputies, but also that we work collectively to protect this community.
One of the things that I've gotten to know several of the police officers and the sheriff's deputies, and of course Chaplain Chuck is a dear friend, of basically when we see the lights and the sirens go speeding by on the way to a call, we think, oh gosh, somebody's been in an accident, somebody, whatever. But I think what we need to also think about in that same moment is say a quick prayer for the responder that they're going to be all right as well.
Well, and that's true, Peter, and very important. Daily our deputies are responding to dangerous and life-threatening situations where they're required to make split-second decisions based on what's best for their personal safety and the safety of our community. And, these decisions later on are scrutinized by the press and by the public. And we all have the luxury of being able to take some time to review the details. But what's critical is these decisions are being based on what our deputies know at the time, and what their concerns are at the time based on the information that they have. And, from reading the investigative report that was completed by the city police department, it's clear that Captain Rio, in relation to the officer-involved shooting, responded appropriately and was within our policy pertaining to the use of deadly force.
Yeah, tell you what, we're up against a break, and I want to go into that report just a little more in depth because I had a chance to visit with our brand new county attorney, Kirsten Pabst. She also stepped into a situation where probably she was hoping just kind of ease in and take a couple of weeks to. And we plan to have her on Talk Back in a future episode as well. But we're going to continue with Sheriff T.J. McDermott. 721-1290 is our number. We're going to come right back right after this. This is Talk Back for Wednesday, January 14th. My lovely daughter Jenna's birthday today, so she's over in Seattle. Probably not quite awake yet, but that's okay.
She's on Emmett time.
Yeah. Now you wanted to say something to TJ.
I did. I wanted to praise TJ for coming on Talk Back after the election. It's one thing for someone to come on a public forum like this when they're running for a seat, but it's quite a different when they're actually in office. And I think it's a great, outstanding thing that he's doing. I also wanted to ask him a question about changes. Obviously, last time you were on and you were running for the office, we were talking a lot about things that you wanted to do different or things that you wanted to see changed at the sheriff's office. And I was wondering, how are things moving? Are you getting your feet settled? Are you making changes? Are you waiting, trying to feel the water first?
Well, things are going very well. Change is slow, and we're trying to not be impulsive with any of these changes. But, Jason Johnson has stepped into the role of undersheriff, and he's been doing a great job for us, taking part in some of the issues out at the detention center. In fact, this week he's at a jail administrator training out of town, but really jumping in with both feet to work with the folks at our detention center and try to resolve any issues that became apparent out there that need our attention. Bill Burt has been appointed to the patrol captain's position, so that's a change. And Rob Taylor, the former patrol captain, his duties have changed also, and he is now the captain of support services, and he will be overseeing our civilian support staff, our training lieutenants for special teams, our SRT team, search and rescue, some of those special duties and teams that we have in our department. And then we're also going to have a training lieutenant that will handle the training for our regular deputies and our detention officers and make sure that we're doing our yearly and quarterly training and maintaining the certifications that are required to be a peace officer.
Now, TJ, one of the things I know that before Mark Muir and now Chief Brady are dealing with is the whole sexual assault issue. And I was wondering, they're undergoing special training with their detectives. What about the Sheriff's Department?
We have agreed to a MOU as well with the County Attorney's Office, and we look forward to learning better ways of handling those types of investigations based off of the DOJ's investigation and the issues that were brought out during that process. So I believe that standard is really going to be the baseline for these types of investigations, and the Sheriff's Office is going to be committed to making sure that we meet or exceed at least that level. So we are going to be collaborating with the city as well as the County Attorney's Office to make sure that we meet at least that new baseline and meet those demands appropriately as an agency.
Real quick before we go to call, just because I don't know, what's MOU?
Memorandum of Understanding, okay. A written agreement.
Gotcha. All right, Erica.
So you had to ask.
I had to be the dummy guy.
Erica, good morning. You're on with Sheriff McDermott. Go ahead.
Yes, Sheriff, you're talking about changes, and I understand you pulled a John Boehner right here in Missoula County by getting back at the people who did not vote for you or who ran against you. You demoted Josh Clark to a patrolman and on graveyard shift. Do you think that's fair? What's your justification?
Now, John, what does John Boehner have to do with all this, Eric?
Oh, John Boehner was accused of demoting someone that voted against him
for
the speakership.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks, Erica. Thanks for the call. So, TJ, what do you think?
Yeah, Erica, that's a great question, and it's good that you've asked that so that this can be cleared up. Elections specifically for sheriff are very common in the state of Montana across the 56 counties. And as a result, there is a state law that is in place that really spells out what happens in the event of an election and a change of sheriff. And it's important to know that that law allows former undersheriff, Mr. Clark in this instance, to maintain his salary, maintain his seniority, and he's guaranteed the rank of a deputy sheriff. And the move with Josh Clark was consistent with the moves of other undersheriffs and consistent with what happens as a result of an election or a change in the office of sheriff across our state. I can further say that I've had several conversations with Josh Clark about where he would like to go and what type of duties he would like to have in our department. Our department, per contract with the Deputy Sheriff's Association, allows a deputy the opportunity to bid a shift based on seniority, and that is something that Josh Clark will be able to take advantage to. And with his seniority, he should have a pretty good say of where he'll end up on a shift. In addition to that, with the change of the sheriff administration, there's going to be opportunities for transfers to the detective division, as well as some promotional opportunities in patrol and in supervisor roles. And Josh Clark is eligible for all of those opportunities, and really what's occurred with him is consistent with what would occur in any situation with a new sheriff coming.
And you know, just speaking as a media person, in getting to know all the candidates, you know, Deputy Parcell, Josh, yourself, all the folks that ran, I saw a level playing field of men that were honorable, who had served their communities well, and that had done a really good job in their position. So, you know, I found no problem there at all.
Well, and that's correct, Peter. And regardless of who would have won the election or in which community the election would have been, it's very common for a sheriff to come in and have a different undersheriff. It's also common for an outgoing sheriff and undersheriff to retire together. But, you know, in the past, prior to the law that defines what happens in the event of an election with an undersheriff, no one wanted to step into the undersheriff role because there wasn't any protection. And in a sense, when there was an election, the undersheriff would in a sense lose his job. So the state went as far as to pass and write a law that defines specifically what occurs during an election and offers some protection for an undersheriff so that they at least could maintain pay, seniority, and the rank of a deputy sheriff.
Okay, so we have a Facebook comment, then we'll take a break, and then we have Craig on the line.
Quick question from Facebook. Who did the investigation of the Evero shooting, and who is doing the Caleb Williams investigation?
Okay. The Evero shooting investigation is being done per policy by an outside agency, and that agency is the Missoula Police Department, and the lead detective is Detective Guy Baker.
Okay.
And the Caleb Williams shooting, or the city officer-involved shooting, the request was made to the sheriff's office, our detective division, and the lead detective is Detective John Gunter.
All right, we're going to take a little break. Come right back. Craig is waiting to visit with you, and we have a line open, 721-1290. We're coming right back with more. Sheriff T.J. McDermott on the line here in just a moment. Hey, we're back on Talkback. 721-1290 is our number. T.J. McDermott, Sheriff of Missoula County, joining us on the telephone. So let's get right back to the phones and say good morning to Craig. Craig, you're on with Sheriff McDermott. Hi.
Good morning, Sheriff. So my question is a question of curiosity here. And I don't live in Missoula County, but this is something my wife and I witness on occasion here. So we'll see like a half a dozen sheriff cars go by. We live on the East Side Highway. So we'll witness like a half a dozen sheriff cars go whizzing by here at some pretty good speeds. And then the next day in the news, you don't read anything about what it was all about. What would you think some of those things might be? where it needs half a dozen sheriff cars racing off to a scene?
Well, it could be a number of things. Without a specific day or time of day, there are traffic stops that require backup. There are alarms to businesses that require backup.
And there are accidents too, right?
And there's also traffic crashes, you're right, which may or may not have injuries. So there's a number of things that would require a quick response by law enforcement that necessarily may not be newsworthy afterwards. But our system is good, and it tracks what's going on and who's dispatched. And so if there's ever a concern that the public would have, we would be able to look into a specific date and time and have a good idea of what call for service was being made and who and why a response was made. But
okay. Now, TJ, with the minute and a half that we have left, could you just kind of outline the policies whereby Captain Rio will be able to be cleared and get back to work?
Sure. Very common in any officer-involved shooting, and it's in our policy that an outside agency will conduct the investigation, and that's been done with the City Police Department and Detective Guy Baker. It's important to note that those involved submit to blood draws. Captain Rio and Acting Sergeant Dickin and another deputy also attended a critical stress incident debriefing. And they've also attended counseling and mental health services. And for Captain Rio to return to work, we basically needed the investigation to be completed by the City Police Department, reviewed by myself and the county attorney, which has been done. And we've determined that he did respond appropriately and was within our policy pertaining to the use of deadly force. So right now, for him to return, we're just looking for a fitness for duty assessment to be completed by a licensed mental health professional, and then he will be able to come back to work. Now, he is going to come back on a restricted status because he was injured in this incident as well, had some injury to a wrist, a shin, and his lower back or his side. So at some point he'll be able to come back, but really right now what we're waiting for is for him to complete a fitness for duty assessment with a licensed psychologist.
I wanted to ask you, if all this chaos going on right in your first day of work, if it's helped bring people at the Missoula County Sheriff's Office kind of back under the roof together.
It has, and that's a great point, John. Anytime something like this happens, this department pulls together, and I'm very proud of our deputies and detectives for that we're able to just put differences aside and get back to doing our job, protecting each other and protecting this community.
Great. TJ, we thank you, and we hope to get you on a regular basis on Talkback, all right?
All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's TJ McDermott, and we're going to take a little break, come right back after the top of the hour, and we'll have open phones from 9 to 10, 721-1290, 1-800-568-5309. Thanks for joining us here on Talkback. And welcome back, everybody. It is Talkback. I'm Peter Christian. I want to say thank you to Sheriff TJ McDermott on very short notice. We're talking maybe 15, 20 minutes short notice. Willing to come on with us and discuss his first 2 weeks in office and all that went on, plus taking some calls from listeners. And as TJ discovered, we don't screen our calls. It's like Forrest Gump. You never know what you're going to get. So I thought he handled it very well. So go ahead.
So anyway, we had some more comments on some of the topics we had for the first half hour, then also on our conversation with TJ. So I'll go over some of those.
Go right ahead.
First on the issue with TJ, Claire responded, "Wow, the wolves from one den investigating the wolves from another den." This is in regards to the sheriff's office investigating the police department.
I knew somebody was going to bring that up. I mean, who else do you want to do it? I mean,
she says that's what they consider an outside investigation. LMAO, by the way, wasn't this Rio's second shooting in less than a year? I'm not sure if Rio was involved in a shooting.
No, he was. Captain Rio, who used to be Sergeant Rio, was involved. I believe it was in 2009. If you remember, there was an armed robbery of the local credit union on Brooks, and a gentleman had a hunting rifle, and he held up the credit union and then took off. Well, Sergeant Rio was the officer that encountered him over on Upper Miller Creek Road, and the man was firing at him basically, and so he returned fire and injured the man. And that individual, I believe his name is Martin. I could be wrong. Is now in the Montana State Prison.
Well, still, I mean, he's a police officer. He shouldn't be using a gun to fight someone with a rifle. Anyway, it's not fair, is it? Just
so you know, because I remember I interviewed Sergeant Rio after that shooting. And, I was just thinking about this. On television, and when you go to the movies, and wholesale destruction takes place, people out there with Mac 10s and, mowing people down right and left, and
giant robots from sentient planets.
And then they get wounded in the shoulder, and it's no big deal. I'm good. I'm fine, and all that kind of. And they don't realize the actual damage that a real bullet does to people. I mean, with flesh and bone and all that. It's horrible, and we have this weird sort of disconnect from reality. And these men and women have to deal with reality every day. And I can't even imagine what goes through their minds when they watch these movies and TV shows. Their eyes must just roll back in their heads, and, thinking, my goodness, it's Hollywood. Anyway, so please continue with your...
Okay, another thing that was thrown up here, Katie was commenting on, what are Montana values, which was our question for the first half hour.
Yeah.
She says, independence is the Montana valued way of life. Montanans are self-reliant, private gun owners who provide for their families and speak their opinions openly. The arts flourish because of the independent lifestyle here that encourages expression, and our musicians, artists, and athletes are world-class. Our young people achieve high levels of excellence and then go out and improve the world.
Well, I like her. I think that was Katie?
That was Katie.
Oh, Katie for president, man. I love that. That's very well said.
So there you go.
Anything else?
That's what we got so far.
So let's get Tyler back. Tyler, you're welcome back. Go ahead, sir.
Thanks. In reflection to the comments you just made about police-involved shootings, did you guys see yesterday the news that was on Fox most of the day about the Montana cop that broke down in tears?
Yes, so the Billings, I believe it was Officer Morrison, yes.
Yeah. I wish there was a way that you could play that on the air and we could see it on the radio.
Well, I looked, I watched the video, I almost played it on the air. The videos that I watched, though, I found it very disturbing. The videos that I watched, he just has so many expletives.
Yeah.
I mean, and this is before the guy starts cursing before he starts shooting. I mean, I'm talking about the officer here. I apologize for not remembering his name.
Officer Morrison.
And it goes on. He must use the F word 5 or 6 times before the whole situation is over.
Well, I hate to tell you, but that's Montana.
Is it? I live in a different Montana, an FCC-controlled Montana, apparently.
I tell you, and I've done this a lot of times, too, where Capper Mike might know and be able to testify.
Well, he's next in line, so maybe
he'll... good. Okay, so when you get out in the woods and you start talking to these people that are, they're real Montanans. They're out there carving, cutting out firewood so they can make it through the winter, like me. And you start talking to these guys, there are a lot of people out there that are level-headed, cool-minded, but they got a mouth on them like a sailor, like me. But that's just the way it is out here. Just another way Montana is, I guess. But that video, I wish you could link it to the website, because that video is worth watching.
I can try to find it.
Extreme language,
Yeah, that was my biggest thing. Like I'm not sure what our company policy is with cursing.
Or maybe just a link to the website that has the video.
That I could possibly do and just put a warning on there. So
yeah.
All right, thanks.
Well, it couldn't be as bad as the backside of everybody during the naked bike ride. So.
Our pornographic film connoisseur.
Thank you.
Peter Christian was the one who...
Actually, what you didn't see was the first 30 seconds of that video, which was from the front. And I said to myself, I said, this ain't going to work. So I just turned the camera around and got everybody from the backside, and that worked out much better. So
I'm going to grab this footage right here.
Thanks for the call, Tyler. Mike, we're going to get you on here in just a minute. 721-1290 is our number. We'll be right back. Hey, it's Talk Back. It's Wednesday, and we got lines. We have one line open still, 721-1290. Go ahead.
We got another call on the Montana values issue.
Okay, I can't wait.
By the way, we'd love to hear more, because this is something Peter's been fretting over for months.
Well, I've been fretting. I was just questioning.
Well, he's questioned for months.
Just wondering.
Solve this problem for all politicians.
Okay.
What are Montana values? Tracy called in, and he says, I don't know what Montana values are, but I know what they aren't, and they are not naked bike rides.
Well said. I like it. Let's get Mike on the line. Good morning, Mike.
Well, that's what this is about, is Montana values. And by the way, as far as cussing goes, I try and refrain from that, especially because if I talk on the radio, I know you'd shut me off real quick.
Well, we wouldn't be able to have you back on again, Mike.
Get into is cussing.
Yeah, and if you did that, we wouldn't be able to have you back on.
It does show you're not too bright, so I qualify on that score. But what I did find out when we're talking about Montana values, one thing that they don't value is the life of a Montana worker. The Montana worker is about as cheap as you can get. And a little birdie told me that yesterday. The maximum you can get for getting killed on the job in Montana is $5,000. This is absolutely. I was absolutely shocked when I heard that.
Maximum for what? For life insurance?
Yeah, if you fall down the stairs and break your full neck, the best your wife will get is $5,000 for your broken neck after you're dead.
That doesn't make a lot of sense. No, it doesn't.
Well, my first response is that you got a crappy attorney.
Yeah, I was going to say.
No.
You must be talking about from
OSHA?
No, this came from the attorney. So this is what they told me. He said, and I said, hey, I'll bring that up on the radio. And they said, hey, absolutely. They said $5,000 is the most you can get out of work comp in Montana now.
Oh, you're talking workman's comp. Okay,
I got you.
Yeah, but then you get the attorney involved in a civil suit, and away you go.
Well, yeah, but I don't know if you're covered under work comp. The civil suit ain't going to work all that great.
I don't know.
I've had a little experience with it. So
okay, and assuming you also likely have a life insurance policy, or hopefully would.
Yeah, hopefully.
With the way a lot of Montanans work. No, they don't have life insurance policies. You have to have a steady job to have life insurance policies. And take a look at all these seasonal jobs we got. I worked in the woods for years, and I never worked year round. Most of the time, you're off 3 or 4 months out of the year. So, and I always get tickled this. And then when you went back to work, if they went back to work, the damn mill closed up and left the country. So,
yeah.
But no, I find this absolutely disgusting to the point, because I believe a bunch of them work comp people got paid bonuses last year.
Well, I'll tell you what, I will get a hold of the folks at work comp, because the WorkSafe folks have been in our studio many times, and I will look up those contacts and try to find out.
Yeah, well, that's what and I told a young girl, the one that told me this, I said, yeah, I'll bring it up. I said, to me, it is disgusting and downright, that's putting a life really cheap. You can't even get a good funeral for $5,000.
All right. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, bye.
Appreciate the call. 721-1290 is our number. And Catherine, you are on Talkback. Go ahead.
Okay. And I'm kind of reverting back to a question that you asked me a little earlier on what I thought were the important things here.
Yeah.
Okay. And I said that I think over-regulation.
All right.
Okay. To support that, there was an interesting little article this morning in the Gallup Business Journal. I don't know if you ever go to that. That's the Gallup poll business journal. This was by the CEO. The U.S. is now 13th in business startups. And for the first time in the 35 years of measuring this, American business deaths now outnumber business births. In other words, it's about 400,000 new businesses born, and 470,000 die each year. and those are businesses with one or more employees. And I wanted to point out that I think it's about 68% of the United States economy are small businesses.
Oh, yeah, it's huge.
Yeah, so this is a rather disturbing statistic, and it's kind of like a underground earthquake, I think.
Well, not being an economist, but rubbing shoulders with them every now and then. The one thing that I have learned is that the number one reason why especially small businesses fail within the first 2 years is undercapitalization.
Yes.
They don't have enough cash on hand to keep things going for the first 2 years until they can get their feet underneath them, and they end up failing.
Well, but the other aspect of that, though, is what they need the capitalization for, which is to adhere to all the new kinds of regulations.
Sure, that has a lot to do with it, yeah.
Yeah, so I just wanted to point that out. I don't know if anybody is interested in that, but I am.
I am.
So.
I want to hear what you think are some of the causes. I'm looking at the charts here, and they really show, 2009 is when everything kind of went to heck.
Went upside down, yeah.
Yeah, where the two lines cross, where the number of new firms for the first time since 1977 drops below, new firms being created, drops below the line of firms closing down. And since that time, we've never gotten back. We've never flipped the diagram so that we're making more than we're losing. Right. I guess my question to you is, what do you think? Would that be a sign of a true recovery to you, or what do you think?
More businesses become. Yeah, I think in some ways, it would be that more businesses would have the ability to weather the first few years.
Now, wait a minute. Hold on just a minute. Now, hold on there.
What is that? Foghorn Leghorns?
I don't know. Just a minute, boy.
I say boy.
I say boy. Okay, now, but if that's true, then why is it that I hear President Obama and all the folks trumpeting, we had 460,000 new jobs, and the jobless rate is down to 5.6%. The economy is booming again. Everything's great.
Well, of course, the thing to consider is they never discuss what kind of jobs, whether they are full-time or part-time jobs, and how many people actually drop out. We've talked about this before.
Yeah.
The
job participation rate.
Right.
The
the
labor
job participation rate. And so that's never talked about when all these things are being trumpeted.
Well, because the last thing you want to do when you want to just serve up this great piece of good news is, on the other hand, it's all a big lie.
Well, there's two.
What is it? Statistics are, what's that old saying, Peter?
Statistics,
there's lies, damn lies, and statistics. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. That's a Mark Twain quote, I think.
I don't know.
Anyway, what I was going to say is, I think what we saw in this recovery, instead of some kind of explosive growth, I think what we saw is, I think that the economy has improved. It's kind of hard to deny in many ways, but it's done so in ways that basically what you've seen is a lot of companies trimming all of the fat, making themselves more expert at the things that they do, and the ones that were able to hold on are doing so with a much bigger head of steam. And when this whole cycle's done, they'll be in a much better place. But
it'll be fewer, bigger companies.
By the way, that was Mark Twain that said that.
That's what I said.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. At first I thought it was Will Rogers, and then I just confirmed you. So, hey,
the two main, American humorists, or what do you want to call them? Not humorists.
Yes.
But
Folk humorists. All right. Hey, we're up against the break, Catherine. Thanks for the call.
All righty. Thank you.
Have a great day. 721-1290. What's on your mind? There's kind of no open phones this morning. We're still looking for what you think Montana values are. We've had some really good responses on that, by the way, and we'd love to hear from you. What's on your mind? We're going to be here till 10 o'clock this morning. We'd love to take your call. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Talk Back, where maturity reigns supreme. 721-1290 is our number. All right, let's get enough of this silliness. Let's get Dave on the line. Good morning, Dave.
Yeah, all the news has been about that there's lots of jobs, but the wages are down, and they're just stunned that wages aren't going up. And in my view, we're in a new world, a world where labor pool, it's a whole world for labor. and that's keeping jobs down. Wages down. If factories are telling their workers if they want raise, well, forget it. We're going to move our factory. So it's just holding down wages. Period.
So what do you suggest, Dave?
Well, I would like to see. I'm a free trader too, like everyone else, but the free trade regulations that we've drawn up with China and Mexico and other countries are just not good ones. We should just start over.
What? It's kind of hard to. I mean, when you say free,
well,
it means one thing. If you'd say draw it up differently, what are you thinking?
As my mom used to say, the cow's out of the barn, Dave.
Right. Well, a good part of it would be money manipulation. Pay the China, any other country that wants to can manipulate their currency down to advocate for their currency in their country.
Well, people do, and again, we've talked about this before when Bob Seidenschwartz was here, and I think the same thing with Patrick Barkey is you have to figure out what the self-interest is the motive behind whatever move people or nations or economies make. And once you figure out what their self-interest is, then you can have some sort of strategy to counter it.
Now, the countries around the world do have a way to deal with currency manipulation. It's not supposed to happen. I think a lot of countries do it. China is famous for doing it. When it comes to the issue of China, though, I mean, I don't know. I almost feel like in some ways the talk about the exporting of jobs, it almost feels like it's 10 years old or 15 years old, and that I feel like in 10 years China will be such a different place that wages will have to increase in China. And therefore, they're not going to be the competitive center for that kind of, and I think that's already started.
So what I hear you saying to Dave is this is a temporary condition?
Yeah, it's I don't know. He got in trouble for plagiarism, but the guy that wrote the book Rise of the Rest,
right,
or that was like kind of the theme.
I know who you're talking about. Yeah,
yeah. He has a TV show. Fareed Zakaria is his name.
Okay.
Anyway, in his book, one of the things he covers is this idea that we after World War II we were in an interesting spot, right? Because most of the world was completely ruined. The United States was on top because most of the invasions didn't happen.
We're the only one of the only countries that wasn't damaged by the war,
and we had a huge mercantile industry, all this stuff going on. We had
our infrastructure was complete. Yeah,
right. And so we had a huge prosperous boom that is unlike what most countries will ever experience. And after that, and compared to the rest of the world, clearly, and then China delayed advancement thanks to communism and Maoism and a whole bunch of horrible policies for many years, and suppressed their people and continue to in many ways. So that watching them rise is almost just a kind of catch-up game. But as they do catch up, though, the things are going to even out, it seems to me. And pretty soon, it's not going to be so cheap to send stuff over there. Because people are people in China and people are people in the U.S., and they're all going to demand more for themselves and their families.
Does that make sense, Dave?
It's certainly possible, but how many years are we talking about?
Well, I think it's something that, at least from what I've read, has already started happening. I mean, most of the exporting of stuff it typically isn't, from what I've been able to read, moving towards China. It's moving to other areas where wages are more depressed.
It's yes, and then it'll move to more areas.
There's only one world, so eventually they're going to run out of places.
There's a huge population in South America and Africa that where jobs can go. I mean, low wages can go around and around, and what happens to our wages while we're waiting for all this to play out?
Well, that's one of the things that next time we have Ryan Zinke or Steve Daines on, maybe you can call him and ask him, okay?
But in the meantime, think about it. Yeah, it's kind of tough for American workers. They don't have as easy access to some employment, but frankly, American workers have we have pretty good opportunities here. I have basically no skills, and I'm able to get a job here. There's a lot of things that you can do in America if you have the gumption to do it.
There's so much I could say,
but over in Africa, in Africa and other parts of the world, and Africa's had a boom recently. Obviously, most American Western press has only read about the Ebola scare, but industry, economy, and thriving development, decrease in death per capita by a whole bunch of diseases that used to plague that nation or those nations. So I think that you're going to start to see a lot of changes like that.
Hey, Dave, we got to run. Thanks.
Sure.
Appreciate the call. Charles, you are up next. We're going to take a little break, come right back. We have 2 lines open. As open phones, folks, as you can tell, we're kind of going from soup to nuts and then back again. Now we're going to come right back with more Talk Back right after this. Hey, for some reason, I feel more like it's Friday than Wednesday. So let's just take the next 2 days off, John. What do you think?
I'm good. Let's do it.
We can't do that. Charles, good morning. You're on Talk Back. Go ahead.
Hi there. I just wanted to flash back to yesterday on the highway tax.
Go ahead, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, and this is from Chris Edwards, Highways and the Federal Gas Tax on townhall.com. And looking at this, he kind of disputes what we were talking about yesterday from the experts, and it looks to me like there's 2 big myths that we're working on. One is, of course, the growing backlog of troubled roads and bridges and so forth. But he says the Federal Highway Administration data shows that the nation's 6,000 bridges, the share that's structurally deficient has fallen 22% from 1992 to 2013. And the number that's functionally obsolete has fallen. Okay, so that's one thing. But how about whether you go into potholes? And then you look at the data, and the Federal Reserve economist looking at the federal highway data has shown, quote, since the mid-1990s, our nation's interstate highways have become indisputably smoother and less deteriorated. And they concluded that the interstate system is in relatively good shape to its past condition. So there are 2 things there. Then the funding crisis. And the idea that the gas tax has never been increased, for a long time. But, he says, the gas tax rate more than quadrupled between 1982 and 1994 from 4 cents a gallon to 18.6. And if you average it out, he says, it comes to 6.1% a year from then to here. So his conclusion is that there's a spending crisis, not a funding crisis. And one other thing. I'd like to tell you a private peeve I have. When you come across the country on the interstate highway system, where the states have these toll roads as links there, and I say that they shouldn't be able to double dip. If they're going to collect federal gas tax, they shouldn't be able to charge the tolls.
Well, some of those roads aren't paid for by the feds.
Yeah.
And for example,
take that.
Let me give you an example. And I might be totally wrong on this one because Seattle, I'm sure they're going to get money out of everybody. But there's that bridge. The Narrows Bridge, the Tacoma Narrows. My family lives down in Bremerton, so when we drive from Missoula over there, we got to go through this. Anyway, it frustrates the heck out of me. They got a toll booth. I always forget, and I'm not prepared, and I freak out, and whatever. But anyway, they had to raise the money to build that bridge apparently through this tolling process, and they're paying it off that way.
Right. Now, but let me ask you this. To get to the bridge and then the road after the bridge, it's probably federal money, right?
Probably.
Okay, so...
And then I think they jumped the gun. They didn't use federal funds to build the bridge, so they used it. But down in Oklahoma, when I remember... well, maybe I'm wrong on the state. There's a lot of states between here and Oklahoma. So Anyway, I remember going through some toll roads, and I think those are private roads that they collect the toll on because that's how they pay for them.
Well, but wouldn't you say, if you go like the New Jersey toll road, I don't know what all those are, but I mean, they never quit paying for them with the tolls. They just keep collecting tolls. Don't they ever get paid off? And it's such a pain in the neck. And really, I think enough gas tax, if it wasn't spent for everything else, could pay for those stretches. But my only complaint is, if you want to collect the toll, don't collect the state gas tax. I mean, the federal gas tax.
All right, Charles.
Hey, thanks a lot.
Thanks for the call. Appreciate that. It's just venting.
In my personal perfect world, every road would be a kind of toll road. If you drive on the road, you pay to use it, and if not very many people use that road, then you'll pay more to use it. If lots of people use it, you'll pay less.
As opposed to what?
As opposed to having this national federal system where everybody pays for it. Because, I mean, I like fees for use. I think it's a more just way to pay for things.
Okay, but if you don't have the money.
Why wouldn't you have the money?
Well,
I mean, toll roads are an old way to pay for things. That's how most places dealt with it before modern era.
That's exactly what Mr. Barkey said.
But our way of using tolls is outdated. We still are using like cards and cash and coins and stuff like that. It would be easy in the future. In fact, in Japan, it was like this.
Okay.
You have like a thing that just reads your license plate and charges you for it.
Wow. Interesting. Okay, well, grab line 1. 721-1290 is our number, 1-800-568-5309. Or if you'd like, if you can't get through, although we do have 2 lines open, we're happy to take your Facebook message and talk to you that way. So let's get Florence. Florence, first of all, thank you for calling, ma'am. What's on your mind?
Well, John was saying there's nothing wrong with toll roads. Have you ever been through Chicago?
Personally, no. I've never traveled through Chicago.
Well, second of all, don't.
Okay.
Well, the first thing is you can taste it once you get there.
Okay.
Well, me and my husband were going through Chicago, and we took a wrong exit and got on their toll road.
Uh-huh.
Every exit you get to is a separate toll.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
It's not one toll for the whole road. It is. By the time we got off, we'd already paid $20 in tolls, and I think it was like 5 exits.
Zowie.
Yeah.
Well, so which brings to mind the great old expression, ask not for whom the bell tolls for thee. I'm sorry, that was really
and then
poorly
we were
used.
on the Pennsylvania Turnpike. That's one you get on and you pay a certain amount depending on where you get off.
So you better have a pocket full of change, right?
But in many ways,
doesn't
that make sense?
In Chicago.
Okay,
but in many ways, doesn't that make sense? I mean, obviously, if you're traveling further, you're using more road, it's going to cost more to upkeep.
Well, I don't mind the Pennsylvania Turnpike. The one in Chicago, that was ridiculous.
Well, Chicago has lots of problems.
Yeah, I know. For one, you can taste it when you get
there. And they shoot each other a lot in Chicago.
Does it taste like the future presidency?
Yeah. I mean, it's just scary.
All right. Well, Florence, thanks for bringing that up. We appreciate it.
Uh-huh.
Have a great day. And by the way, but one of the nice things about being on this show is you don't have to put money into the radio to listen to Talkback.
Wow.
It's free.
Assuming you paid for the radio in the first place.
Well, yeah. But if you're in a car, it came with the deal. And anyway, we're going to come right back. I can sense this whole philosophical discussion coming up here.
What came first, the radio or the free?
Yeah. We're going to come right back with more of Talkback, and I'm just going to run. We'll be right back. John King's over there. I'm Peter Christian, and we'd love to have you be a part of the show. It's 721-1290. Now, we do have some national news stories that we've been following, and of course, John, being our show producer, has worked very, very hard putting these things together. So tell me what we're going to hear right now.
Okay, so one of the things, after the Unity rally on Sunday,
right.
Obviously we talked about a little bit.
Rally.
The unity of everybody but the United States.
The rally de unité.
Yes.
Or whatever.
I think you just offended a whole entire country.
I'm sorry.
Anyway, Pepe Le Pew was not invited.
Okay.
Anyway, Josh Earnest, the president's spokesperson,
right.
was responding to a series of questions from the press. I mean, literally, there were 4 or 5 questions on the same theme over and over, different tacks on it. And so I recorded some of these press hearings because I thought they asked some pretty good questions. Things we were wondering, things like, why didn't we send anyone over to the Unity rally?
Right.
Why? Other countries did. So anyway, here's the responses. The questions in this segment are from Ed Henry from, I believe, Fox.
Fox, yeah. They love Fox at the White House news briefings.
Oh, yes.
So here we go. How do you like it so far?
Why isn't it the summit on countering Islamic extremism?
Because violent extremism is something that we want to be focused on, and it's not just Islamic violent extremism that we want to counter. There are other forms of
Paris, Australia, Canada. Isn't the thread through them that it's Islamic extremism?
Mm-hmm. Well, certainly those all the examples that you cite are examples of individuals who cited Islam as they've carried out acts of of violence. There's no arguing that.
You said several times we should have sent someone higher than the ambassador. I haven't
With
heard
a higher profile than the ambassador. That's correct.
Question: why didn't you?
Well, Ed, I sort of tried to describe to you exactly the situation here. That we're talking about a march that came together with essentially 36 hours notice, and a march that occurred outdoors with an obviously very large number of people who participated. We are mindful anytime the president goes to a public place, or the vice president for that matter, that we don't want to, or at least we want to try to mitigate the impact that the security precautions would have on those who are participating in this public event. And there's no doubt that had the president or vice president on this very short time frame gone to participate in this event that took place outdoors with more than 1 million people in attendance, that it would have significantly impacted the ability of those who were attending the march to participate in the way that they did yesterday.
Everyone in this room would acknowledge the president's safety is of utmost. It's not an issue at all. Of course his security is important, and you don't want to detract from the event. How do you explain then that the Israeli Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, he made it there? He's a huge target, obviously, unfortunately.
Well, I will allow the Israelis to discuss what security precautions they had in place.
Dozens of leaders from countries that are very important. They're not America, but very important.
How did they make it there? Ed, you should talk to them about the security precautions they have in place. You've been to enough events where the president is attending a conference or a summit with other world leaders, and I think that you have seen firsthand that the security precautions that are in place for the president of the United States, this has been true of previous presidents too, are sometimes more onerous than the precautions that are put in place for other world leaders.
In the Mandela funeral, there are dozens and dozens of leaders. The American security might be more, but it comes up in short notice. Unfortunately, Mandela dies, and you wanted to be there. You may. Well, how did that come together?
The difference with President Mandela is that there had been discussions that have been ongoing for, frankly, a number of years about the ceremony that would take place in the event of his death. And so there was a much clearer, that's right, but there was a much clearer a plan that was already in place that could be followed for executing that event on a short time frame. There obviously was nothing in place because I don't think anybody contemplated the kind of attack that we saw in Paris.
You said the president personally wishes he would have liked to have gone. Why didn't he? What was he doing on Sunday? We haven't gotten an accounting of what the president did Sunday.
Yeah, I haven't spoken to the president about what he did yesterday.
I mean, you obviously prepared for this, and you've said many times the most transparent administration. What was the president doing?
I guess I prepared for a lot of questions today, but I did not prepare for a question based on what the president was actually doing yesterday.
Okay. Attorney General Eric Holder was in Paris, and they put out a statement, his office, saying that he had very important meetings. No one would counter that. The counter-terror meetings were very important. One would assume that the French officials who attended those meetings, some of them anyway, probably went to this rally. And the Attorney General's office says that he had to get back to Washington on Sunday afternoon. That was one reason why he couldn't make the rally. Why couldn't the Attorney General? He was in that city, so there's no issue of security was already in place. How could he not attend?
Yeah. And I'm not aware of the details of the Attorney General's schedule for yesterday. But if you are asking whether or not somebody like the Attorney General should have attended or should have been asked by the White House to attend, what I'm telling you is that, yes, we believe somebody with a higher profile should have been asked to attend.
What about this rally in D.C.? There was a rally, I believe it was a march from the museum to the French embassy. We should note the president did go to the French embassy last week, obviously. He signed a condolence book. He expressed his solidarity with the French people. But I understand the president is probably not going to go marching through the streets of D.C. Yeah. But the White House Chief of Staff, the Vice President, a Cabinet Secretary somewhere, how come you didn't have someone in D.C. at a rally?
Yeah. Well, and I know that there were a number of administrators that did participate in that rally. I think a lot of them, or in that march, and I think a lot of them participated, would have done so even if they weren't members of the administration. But, I can tell you, Ed, that for all of this talk, there is no doubt, and there should be no doubt, about this commitment of the administration and the commitment of the American people to standing shoulder to shoulder with our allies in France as they deal with the aftermath of these terrible terrorist attacks and as they continue the fight for the kinds of values that we hold so dear on both sides of the Atlantic.
All right. Now, my intrepid producer, John King, his amazing investigative skills, has uncovered, as they were talking about that, the president's actual public schedule. And this is not a joke. This is not from The Onion or anything. This is the actual schedule from the White House for the president's public schedule for that Sunday. And we'll reveal that to you after this quick 1-minute timeout. And we're back on Talkback, 721-1290, 1-800-568-5309. Okay, John King, first of all, amazing that what you have done in just the short amount of time while Josh Earnest was talking about the president's schedule for Sunday. See, what people don't realize about the president of the United States, all right, probably the busiest human being on the planet. Well, just try to imagine you are the leader of the free world. You are the commander-in-chief of the armed forces of the United States. You are the point man when it comes to governmental affairs. Every moment, every minute, every second is choreographed by an army of secretaries and assistants and lieutenants that are helping you get from one place to another because you've got governments that need to be helped. You've got armies and wars that need to be fought. You've got so many crises in cities where your presence is demanded, and only you can bring the stability to a situation where the commander-in-chief, the president of the United States, can do all these things. And so if you could please take the next few minutes and share with people the reason why he couldn't have gone to Paris. We have his public schedule for that Sunday right here. John King.
Very busy man. If you pull up his public schedule on the official White House website.
Okay, hold on. Let me get a pen and paper.
Which, by the way, is whitehouse.gov/schedule/president. Type in the date.
I'm ready. Okay.
You might want to get a longer spreadsheet.
I pen in hand.
Okay, there you go. Okay.
All right.
3 words.
All right.
No public schedule.
What? No public schedule?
Nothing. Zip nada.
Well, I actually, there probably could have been even shorter than that. Instead of 3 words, it could have been 3 letters. N F L. He was watching football, right? I mean, come on, who wasn't watching football on Sunday?
Me.
I just, oh man, I'm sorry. And again, I will ask the same question I asked, I think it was on Monday.
By the way, vice president's schedule is the same way.
Really?
Oh, what the? I understand, actually. There's a lot of reasons why you wouldn't send the president on that short notice.
I understand. And I was funning, okay?
But seriously, in all seriousness, Vice President Biden, I mean, what else does this guy do? It's not like there's going to be a tied vote in the Senate. He's basically just waiting around for the president to pass off, right? I mean, that's the job of the vice president if the president dies. Right. Otherwise, he's a ribbon cutter. So go cut ribbons. Go be the point man, be the face of the administration.
And of course, the vice president is also in charge of gaffes, of saying embarrassing things.
Telling people that can't stand up to stand up.
Without necessarily meaning to, but it just, I mean, look at Dan Quayle with, the mistakes that he made with the tomato or tomatoes or whatever. I don't know. He misspelled stuff. And he was famous for getting into trouble for saying the wrong thing at the wrong time. So one would think that at least the vice president would have been able to go over to Paris. So I don't know. I just don't know what to say. And my comment that I made on Monday still stands. Who is advising the president? I mean, if there was one, see, they can't recreate the event. They can't just recall everybody and say, "Can everybody come back to Paris?" And I promise this time I'll be there. That was a once in a lifetime event right there. I mean, to show, if you really wanted to show real solidarity, that was the place that you wanted to be, and that can never be recreated. That can never be recaptured. And you can apologize all you want, but unfortunately, I think just personally, it kind of made America look bad. I don't know. So.
And as Tyler we had a couple calls. One said, right. Valerie Jarrett runs things.
Okay.
Well. I think that call is actually mostly right. Also, we had another call. This was from Tyler. He said, we could have sent any past president as well. I mean,
right. Yeah.
There's lots of figureheads that we could have sent. I'm sure Bush or Clinton would have been fine. They would have certainly represented the country over there in a perfectly fine way. I mean, I'm surprised.
Or how about the former Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton? She could have gone.
Yeah.
I mean,
They are still, I believe, impoverished after leaving the White House.
Oh, that's right. That's right. They would have had to. Yeah.
Despite a huge advance for a book that didn't sell, I don't know if they would be able to cover the cost of that flight.
I keep forgetting the extreme poverty that they're under, and of course that she's got like a new grandchild to look after. So.
That is an important feature.
Yes, there is. Anyway, so we have 2 minutes before we're done. Now, what's coming up on tomorrow's fabulous radio program?
So tomorrow we'll be speaking with Michael Moore, who runs Reaching Home, Montana's 10-year plan to end homelessness.
Missoula's 10-year plan.
Missoula's 10-year plan to end homelessness.
Now and this is actually a nationwide movement. I don't know if you know this.
Well, yeah, it's one of those things that they asked each community to develop a plan.
Sure.
Our plan's going to be different than others.
Now, I will say this. Michael Moore, in case you didn't know, he hadn't been around Missoula for a long time. Michael Moore was a reporter for the Missoulian for many, many years. And in my opinion, one of the most gifted writers. There are times when I would read his stories in the Missoulian, especially about tragedies that happened. It would just bring tears to your eyes. He was just really eloquent with the written word, and I just appreciate the fact that he's willing to, come out of retirement or whatever he was doing to help with this. So anyway,
well, we've had a lot of big changes on this front. We've had the new Poverello Center,
right,
and we've had. A lot, this whole plan only got kicked off about a year ago. So we kind of have a year to check up, see if any of it's working, if it's actually making it safer downtown. Is it making it easier for people to find work? Is it actually meeting the needs that it's supposed to be meeting?
And you also have to remember, too, that the University of Montana has committed to 1,000 new, if you will, structures or pieces of housing for students that are coming in. So I'm not sure exactly how that fits in with the 10-year plan to end homelessness in Missoula, but
I'm committed to putting Peter Christian on Mars. That's going to happen someday. I'm committed to it.
Someday. There you go. All right. Well, unfortunately, we're just about out of time. I just want to say thank you. First, I want to say thank you to Sheriff T.J. McDermott, who was willing to come on short notice. And by the way, on Friday, we are going to be visiting with head coach Bob Stitt. And originally I wanted to have him on from 9 to 10, but he's only going to be on from 9 to 9:30. So if you have questions about the new Grizzly football coach and the team and all that, you join us on Friday. Have a great day, everybody.